Very nice. Okay, well, let's get started. Well, welcome everyone to a very special, I think, Altera Unplugged slash Unprojected. This is a New Year special. We'll get to that at the end. We'll ring in the New Year and talk a little bit about that. But there is, meat on the menu, so to speak. There is a new map for us all. We're going to be talking about the new meat map. We will inevitably be discussing the word goon. We will be asking Telemon questions to do with the background behind the map, the lore, so to speak, talking about design with Matteo, and then reflecting, asking questions, going through popular questions for this. And there's a lot to get to, terminology wise, culturally. So let's go ahead and kick it off. And I think, we'll hand it to Telemon to talk an introduction of the map, the different sections. What are we looking at?
All right.
However you'd like.
Nice. Okay, cool. So, apologies for the chat not working. If you are typing in there, I think Chase will monitor it or someone else will monitor it, and then we can get to those questions. But anyway, so this map here is an infographic that Matteo and I did for meat consumption patterns in Altera. And we've been working on this before the patch update, and then kind of put it on hold to kind of focus on other stuff, and then came back and did this. So it actually has all the updated countries on it already, the 136 additional countries. So the main map here, so there's two visual capitalist kind of inspirations, because we've seen visual capitalist kind of data maps on meat consumption, and it's always kind of a little underwhelming and also a little skewed. So we thought we would do something similar, but do it better with fake data. So the first one here is like, what is the most preferred meat? And we also show as part of the legend these different kinds of meats with overlapping category schemes, or like parallel category schemes. So this part here, where it's like the kind of like scientific sounding names, these are livestock categories. What livestock people would use, or like what a UN or Society of Nations paper on livestock economics would use for this kind of term for these animals, and they group different kinds of animals. Then down here we have culinary terms. Okay, so like what you might see on a menu, and they might categorize the different parts of their menu of their protein sources. Then up here we have maybe like nutrition people, or like food scientists might use. Like they're like, you should eat more dark meat, you should eat more light meat. This is obviously all a Western lens. This is like kind of pegged in maybe even Abrahamic or Christian traditions that kind of blend with science in the West. And then here, this might be kind of like what you would call like an outdated agricultural anthropology kind of terminology. Something that maybe like back in the day, in the early 1900s, when anthropologists were trying to categorize like the protein sources of different groups of people, they might have used these terms. Stock meat being that like you would need a lot of these animals to be able to eat, kind of like legumes. Like you would have a huge granary of legumes and starch seeds and stuff. You also might have a huge amount of like stock meats. So the word stock there comes from dried fish, dried herring, I believe, stockfish. And then not meat is also like infused in there. Is like this kind of judgmental lens that is kind of like a taboo already. So yeah, obviously not perfect, but we are kind of like breathing in a lot of kind of quirks into the lore, right? Like it's obvious that it's not going to be a perfect way of representing the whole world. There is going to be a biased standpoint. Here you'll see these little squiggly lines, and Mateo can talk more about design concepts later, but this was just because we didn't like how visual capitalists showed like half of the world eating fish more than any other preferred meats. I would say that like fish is very important in a lot of cuisines, but I think like if you think about Chinese culture, carp, even though it's like huge, it was kind of like huge for economic bang for the buck kind of like purposes for a long time. But the preferred meat on the table for a feast, or for like any person who's like a bit more well-to-do than like your average peasant, would have been pork. So that's why we wanted to show that differentiation. And then here is like top 5 countries for each category's consumptions. Obviously made up data, but we kind of base it off of real world stuff. We kind of did a lot of research, and then you can't really see, but these flags are the pride of the Altera flagging community. We have a lot of flags here that were created especially for this map graphic, because we don't have all 1,600 or 3,000 whatever flags done. But yeah, people worked really hard on that, and it's sad that they only get this little kind of a little, what do you call it, like template to be put into. But at least it also means that the flags are done and they're on the website's flag wall. And then down here is the flip side of like looking at meat consumption, is looking at meat taboos. We talk about that later maybe, because I've talked too much already, but like that's how the sections work here. We have like meat, preferred meat, how much meat is eaten, and what meat is not eaten, right? So this is vegetarian. This is what we would call in our world pescatarian plus insects, right? Because I'm trying to like not have the lens so loaded in Western biases, but like still have a tinge of Western bias. But yeah, insects would almost obviously be, for most cultures, maybe except for like Tibetan Buddhists, for most cultures they would see them as like more trivial animals to consume, and also more like economic. Anyway, so a pescatarian there, and then this is like it kind of parallels religions, but also doesn't. So sometimes you might think you understand this is like a representative of where different religions are, but sometimes it doesn't exactly conform with what you think of the religious layout or spread or range of the world. Anyway, so that's it. We have some footnotes here to explain some of this. This is like really overly nerdy, very pedantic. I have to think hard to understand it whenever I look at it again, but I assure you it's actually quite fascinating when you do try to understand it. Okay, that's it. That's the
Indeed,
overview.
Yeah. Indeed, it's a good introduction. And I think before we move on to talk about design elements of this, there is another question worth asking, which is, there are many anthropological maps for Altera. There's languages, there's political maps, historical maps. Why specifically? What moved you toward just a meat map, or what brought this subject to the fore of your mind?
Right. So, well, okay. So we did a grain map, or like staple crops map a long time ago,
Right.
and
Right.
we kind of showed the spread of different kinds of staple crops. But that is like one of the hardest things to map. So okay, I'll take a step back. The reason why I wanted to do this is because I really like anthropology, and I really like understanding like the bare minimum or frameworks, the base kind of essence of cultures. You might call it like stereotyping, but it's not stereotype. It's like maybe like kernels of I don't know. What do you call it? Fundamental elements of each culture, and I feel like foodways is one of those. So, and then foodways, you can go like, like in Peru, there's this like ceviche, okay, or whatever. But then you have to unpack each dish, because dishes and culinary traditions kind of evolve and change over time. But at the essence of it, if you look at the recipes, you go like, oh, there's certain ingredients that are common in all these recipes. So ceviche hasn't really changed for thousands of years because they still eat it with sweet potato, right? And sweet potato is one of the first domesticated crops in Southern America, right? And so when you like pork would have been used once it was domesticated, pigs would have been used in many, many different ways, evolving in different ways over centuries, over thousands of years in East Asia, as well as Southeast Asia and Western Europe. But it remains a staple throughout history, right? And so this is just like one way of, this one lens, one way of opening the conversation of how different, how each culture expresses itself through foodways. But to map
And
out
there are,
yeah, but to map out those dishes would be impossible, right? This is the easiest way to do it geographically, I think. I don't think we can map out like cuisines very easily, but we can map out like base ingredients. And so one day I would like to do a trifecta a map of like trifecta meats, trifecta grains, trifecta tuber vegetables, right? Those things are actually all quite telling of each culture. You can easily explain Western Europe through the three most important grains to it: barley, rye, wheat, right? Or oat, wheat, and barley, depending on where you are in Europe, right? Or in East Asia, it's the same thing. It's like, so anyway, there's like that, and in legumes too. So foodways, super fascinating. Not too interesting to most people who do world building, but I think that that's something that's usually overlooked in world building. Actually, this is like the most interesting aspect of it to me: the ethnobotany and the agricultural foodways, that kind of stuff.
absolutely. And it's interesting, because you mentioned that it's a little bit reductive, that this is kind of a simpler way of looking at it. But from a design standpoint, this is anything but simplistic. I think this is a good segue to ask Matteo about the design of this particular map, because this is, as Talamon said, this is a ridiculous amount of information. There is so much contained within this map. So, were there any challenging design decisions that you had to make?
Well,
Yeah, anything that comes to mind?
but the first, I guess, like the first challenge was trying to think about what the look of the map is gonna be in terms of the vibe, you know. So like I try to make it look like a menu. I think for once maybe I even came out with the title. Could it be? I don't know. But yeah, because you know like. So that was the first thing because there's not like when you think about food it's a bit or meat is a bit difficult to find something that is visually that visually reminds you of food and food stuff, but that's not a simple plate. You know, so you need something to represent all food and that is able to fit a lot of information in. And luckily, menus tends to do that. So there's like a couple of like in the font choice and kind of the all the different element like kind of
The
staying
flourishes.
very close to each other and pretty densely the decoration and everything working together to kind of give you that feel of you're opening up a menu in a restaurant and
Or like a
looking at
French
it.
style menu, right? A very fancy French style
Yeah,
menu.
yeah, pretty fancy one as a menu.
I think the menu design really comes through the headings on each section and at the top, and the I mean I have no lexicon for design terms, but the way the lines frame the menu. So it's interesting to hear it verbalized. So with the translating the I honestly think design-wise, the bottom-most section might be most intriguing to me, because this is I actually think it's quite an elegant way of representing different diets, and was yeah. I mean, these symbols. Is there anything you could talk about here with how you formulated this?
Well, this is actually like a very simple representation. It's basically just a table, so no fancy graphic like or like infographic thingy. But what makes it a little bit more interesting and more easy to understand is the simple, yeah, the simple legend that instead of just writing, you know, maybe or not allowed or allowed, you make a little icon for it. It's little things that kind of like gives you a measure uh, of how much care has been used. And it's also like I think. kind of gives you the idea a little bit better than having to go through text by text, or like reading a lot of different or a lot of similar but different text. Here is just like a couple of different icons, and you get the idea. It was like difficult to condense so many different type of animals and different types of meats in such a space that a bit condensed. I think at the beginning we wanted to give it more space, so it was like quite the challenge to fit this big sheet with all the other little maps at the top. So you can see that there's like the space of the title of the bottom table is going up through the really close to the to the yes to the maps, the rest and forth, to give as much space as possible to the maps, to the table, and kind of like
Yeah, and then we had to like make these maps a little larger, right? And so you kind of go over the frame a little, but aesthetically it works, right?
Yeah.
And the animal heads, I think,
And the
are
animal heads,
the animal heads too. They're perfectly evocative of what they are. I expect that that's a point of particular pride for you. They look great. The colors work perfectly for them.
Yeah, it's also one of those things we developed like a little system to do them in Photoshop. It was like I'm quite proud of. We did the same thing for the ketchup map, another food related map that we did a couple of years ago, and so it would take a long time to do them one by one, but you do it once and then there's like a quick way to do them, and it was super satisfying that you just put the image in Photoshop, click one button, and it does all of it. And you're like, whoa.
So it was like a design flow.
Yeah,
I mean they look phenomenal. They go in really well with the menu aesthetic, and that's fantastic.
This is my dog, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's a little morbid.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Big floppy ears that you can't really see, and then I think Matteo, did some research, found some images, and I was, of course, always picky, so I'd be like, no, I want this image, but most of the time it was good. So like I think we spent a little too much time even selecting images, right?
I mean, this is a great point, though, to talk about the animals, how they're grouped and so on, to start reflecting on the that part itself. So, culinary versus livestock, that kind of thing. I mean, how you group these animals, the terminology. This might be a great place to start talking about that, because there's so much interesting terminology here. So, your process, Telemon, for grouping the.
Well, okay. So, okay, I kind of alluded to it already earlier in the overview. Right. Probably shouldn't have gone so in depth there. But yeah, like I said, we have one lens is to look at like food, agricultural sciences way, like livestock. Because I was reading how the UN reports on livestock, livestock trade and economics and stuff, and their categories don't actually exactly line up with scientific what do you call it, phytogenetics? I don't know my terms. Where it's like they're in the same family gene,
like
genus.
Taxonomies and so on.
Yeah, so they're not taxonomically consistent in the livestock industry, right? I think like I was surprised to find out that goats were so different from bovines, but they're very distantly related, or that let's see. I forget. So that. Oh, and so the way I group these, sometimes they all fall into the same group, but like some of them might be not in the same parallel. They're not in the same genus even, or in the same kind of order, but they might be more distantly related. Whereas like beef, everything is in the same species. These are all the same Bos taurus species, but then they are subspecies. Whereas here, these are all species in the same, not genus, but here I can pull up this thing here. Like, oh wait, no,
Spreadsheet.
wait, hold on one sec. I think I got another spreadsheet. It's arc of Altera. I think I have species here. Yeah, so you can see like a lot, like some of them are in the same Bos genus. Like yaks are in the same Bos genus, and then bison is a separate one. These different kinds of they're all called buffalo, Cape buffalo or whatever. They're not exactly in the same genus. Anyway, the point is they're not analytically consistent. But in terms of like livestock mindsets, sometimes they're grouped for convenience because of their similar kind of requirements, similar behaviors, that kind of stuff. And then in terms of like serving it to people, like this is where the Western kind of lens of food is quite ironic, right? Like, is a capybara a fish? Is a beaver a fish, right? Like, that's the most famous kind of out there thing. And what is a fish? Is a whale a fish, right? So we have snails famously kind of like faded out because snails are almost always grouped with seafood in a menu. So that's why snails is here, but then snails is also there. So just like coming up with different kinds of ways of grouping these things was just super satisfying for me. And then coming up with like this kind of helped me understand what is a taboo, right? So the pescatarian and the vegetarian mindset makes sense in a Western mindset. I don't know actually why pescatarian is a thing that's like commonly understood here. It might be to do with the Lenten diet, right? Like the Christian kind of fasting methods. And then obviously this bit here is kind of unpacking it a little bit in my mindset from a deontological way of thinking about it. Like, these animals might be less significant as beings than these ones in some people's eyes, right? Someone might have shed more of a tear when they slaughter a cow versus when they break the neck of a chicken, right? I don't know. It's just, for some people, that might be how they draw the line. So this is how I kind of was like categorizing it to draw the line a little bit. And that led to kind of this kind of schematic to show people, that, I don't know. So
Yeah, that's something that I hadn't really noticed, but I think that, like, it's not an exact line, but popular sympathy for each one of these animals does really go down from left to right.
Right.
Like, that's interesting. I mean, I really hadn't. Except of course for not meat on the right as an exception, but that's interesting because it'd be much more, I think, a grievous thing to eat a horse than a frog, and roughly it does go down in that line, at least from our Western perspective.
Yeah,
it's quite interesting.
There is a quite famous PETA advertising, I think it was as well. There's like a line of animals, and that's where do you place the line.
Yeah, that's really what's going on here. I mean, where would you draw the line here? That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I think there's some interesting stuff about taboos to get into there. There was also a question. I think we should get through a few other subjects before moving on to questions. Exactly. I think the terminology is something I've been waiting myself to get to, because Altera and interesting coinages and terminology go hand in hand. Trutchman comes to mind.
Right.
Is there anything you'd like to talk about terminologically, Telemon, to do with how you developed the system of terms for this?
So, because like the livestock sciences, when I was reading them, like I started seeing patterns of using scientific sounding words, but then outdated ones came. Actually, wait, I don't know if they were using outdated ones, but they were using scientific terms to group these animals, and I was like, okay, well, if I want to add my own categories, I probably need to do the same thing. So one of them would be like coming up with one that unites frogs and amphibians and other reptiles. Sorry, amphibians and reptiles. So I looked up Greek and Latin words. This is going to be published in the footnotes. I have them all kind of like written out here of like where they come from. But we don't need to go into them right now. I think that would be too much. But yeah, most of these are like reviving old kind of Roman, Latin or Greek words that might have something to do with them. Like this one is like to do with the fact that they're pack animals, I believe. And then these terms here, I was just like, how can I Frenchify or make it sound like a maitre d' was trying to sell you, or like a waiter was trying to sell you a meat, right? Because for example, capybara apparently is a very common meat in South America, and they're really trying to start a livestock industry there. Right now, it's mostly harvested in the wild. And I think it's now become illegal to harvest them in the wild, so they're really trying to farm them, and they're quite easy to farm. They can be farmed in pig pens. But anyway, so the first step you do is to market it with a new term. Just like kangaroo, they needed to have a new term for kangaroo on the menu, right, in Australia. So, you start thinking, well, the French are the ones who are the best at selling food to Americans and British people. They always want something that's French. So, and then, you go into the whole, it's like semi-myth, semi-truth about the whole French and Anglo-Saxon lexicon of meat versus food, or animal husbandry versus food. So, beef versus cow, or ox, or like pork versus pig. So, how do you make them sound French? Mutton, surprisingly, is not French. It's Scottish. But the term sounds French with the on ending. So just pseudo French cuisine sounding terms. Some of them actually they're just words for the animals themselves in French. But in English, we're none the wiser, right? So that's how we have that. And then these terms here are for the actual individual kind of either species or similar species, right? Like sea lions, there's different kinds of sea lions, but there's only really one sea lion that's been domesticated. And we could talk about domestication later. And that's where the word roan comes from. And in goon, I think it comes from Haida, or maybe it comes from Tlingit. But that's the word we're using for the domesticated seal. Which I think physically they'll be a little different looking. And then quenk is the Trinidadian word for what do you call it? Not cassowary, peccary, right? These are all kind of outdated words or coinages that we revived. You'll see them in the footnotes. I have one quick thing I was going to show here. Is that okay? Or did we have?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, sorry, I cut you off there. But one quick thing is like when we were talking about food taboos, or like the analytical lens of like livestock and like what is worth, what is more morally okay to eat and what's not. That made me go down a rabbit hole of like what are different lenses people have adopted historically, and maybe in Altera what they would use to kind of differentiate different kinds of animals for meat consumption, right? So I already kind of forget how I came up with these terms and what they mean. This is the Christian diet, right? What is considered like probably okay to eat during Lent: fish, maybe bugs, but not these things, right? This is like a pescatarian one. Anything that is like a quadruped, like what we actually in our mind's eye, when we think of animal, we usually think of these kind of things. We don't think of like earthworms, fish. And when you ask people, they'll often just talk about like animals and fish, right? Or they somehow fish seems to capture a different kind of group of live beings, vocabulary wise. And then when people stop to think, then they'll go like, oh, actually no, I meant fish are animals. But at first, we kind of presuppose a differentiation for some reason. Like fruit de mer, like seafood is considered like something almost like like a different form of food that's gifted from the sea, right? So there's that lens. This lens, I believe, I don't even know what mycelium, consumers of brown. Oh my god. I don't know what this is supposed to be in a parallel form for, but yeah, you can see. Oh, well, I just really wanted to break down different kinds of like foods. So what are crustaceans? What are mollusks and sea invertebrates? What are true fish? And then these are the taboos. This might actually be like a Western lens right here. These are considered food for a Westerner, but these are not considered foods. Like, we don't eat reptiles, majority of us in the West, except for the French with frogs. Most people, like the British palate, might think frogs are gross. Same for bugs, right? Different kinds of bugs. And then Megarian, I believe, is they will only eat like lesser beings. So they're kind of like a pescatarian, but they also make the exception for birds and rodents. Anyway, so different ways of breaking it down. Yeah, sorry, that was probably too much of a tangent, but
no, it's intriguing because it's the greatest challenge of all to try and view. I mean, to view this truly through another cultural lens. I mean, it's wild how ingrained this is in us from our upbringing, from our culture. To really step out of it and conceptualize food in a different ways. It's a challenge, at least to me.
Yeah.
Jade observes that Venezuelans do indeed love capybara. I literally did not know that they were eaten at all in any mainstream way, which is interesting.
And for Lent too. That's the crazy thing. Sorry, one thing actually, just based on what you were saying, one thing that always blows my mind is that seafood is more taboo than large animals in the Tibetan tradition of Buddhism, because it's like, how many beings, how many souls or life forms do you need to make yourself full? Are you going to slaughter 100 clams or like one cow to feed 20 people, right? That's kind of like the flip side, like the opposite of my idea of like what is a worthy sacrifice of life.
Interesting. Yeah, no, but this is, I don't know, this is to me the most rewarding or interesting part of Atlas Altera is the diversity in cultures and getting to look and think about the world in a different way and see the world and culture presented in a different way.
Yeah.
It was very neat to me. One of the things that we had meant to talk about as well, when you were talking about domesticated sea lions and so on, it occurred to me that, of course, domestication is different in Atlas Altera as well. And with the spreadsheet, you had alluded to it as well. If you wanted to talk a little more about that, we could.
Sure. I mean, other than that, did you have a couple questions yourself, or because we have 20 minutes left? Is that okay if I talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that my questions are pretty well represented by other people's questions and what we've talked about so far. So
Okay.
yeah, I think we have a little time if you want to talk about it.
Okay, I'll do it real quick. So, like, you'll of course get the full information, the footnotes, but so I can't explain it all. But to break it down here, to kind of clue you in, we have more than 2 domesticated kinds of like staple household pets. Okay, so Jade and a few other people and we love pets and animals, and we were thinking about what are other animals that can like reasonably have historically been domesticated, and actually we're referencing real domestication events. For example, the copeo, I think, was a domesticated animal in like Tierra del Fuego and southern Patagonia, and the island fox, which is not really a fox, it's like a New World canine, canid or whatever, in like the Channel Islands. That may have been a domestication event. We also know that silver foxes in recent history, through scientific experiment by the Soviets, were domesticated. So these are terms that kind of sound like they could be a pet word. In Altera, they actually refer to real species that were domesticated. Like, I believe a pooch is a fox, and we're like, oh, it's the Mongols. The Mongols were the ones who domesticated them for a long, long time. And then, so yeah, these are words that refer to these different animals. Twit is famously for a river otter, and it's really interesting because river otters were semi-domesticated by people in Bangladesh and Southeast Asia for like herding fish into nets. And so we just had the idea that in this part of the world, long time ago, they were already domesticating them, and they look morphologically they look a little different. We don't know what they'll look like, but we can only hypothesize what they would have more coat colors. Their ears might become more floppy, like common traits of domesticated animals. We were also thinking that like certain bugs will in the recent 2 centuries might become staple domesticated animals like critters. Like what do you call it? Not grasshoppers, crickets, right? Like you would think cricket farms would become a very common thing, or maybe in the like 1800s, then more recently. The frogs actually surprisingly were only domesticated in the late 1800s. Most of the time it was wild catch, but we were thinking maybe a little earlier because the mystery of like how to make them breed it doesn't really require industrial sciences or technology. And then so this one here, Ogat, this is a sea cow. So we brought sea cows back from extinction. We pretended that like I think one of the Chukchi or Koryak groups found like a remnant kind of rookery, not a rookery, sorry, like a safe haven of them, and instead of slaughtering them all, started ranching them, and then so on and so forth. Same thing for manatees. We were thinking that manatees from West Africa started being used. They became like integral for their canal systems, because manatees are really good at controlling overgrowth of like river and estuary grasses. And we were thinking that they would be part of the canal kind of water management systems, and then they would bring that kind of domestication kind of, or not domestication, semi-domestication, ranching kind of style logic to this part of the world when they came over for trade. And so this area is where there's actually like domesticated manatees. And in these two things, we were thinking again, the Pacific North, the climate here is famously harsh, and they have less fish than on this side of the world. So maybe they start like closing off rookeries and kind of like controlling the rookeries of these kind of animals. Then it leads to domestication events, and then when they come over here, I'm talking about the Ainu. When the Ainu come over here, they bring these domesticated animals, and so people here, not only are they still hunting seals and sea lions, but they also now have a more dependent domesticated population that they're always managing too. So yeah, those are those things. Those are little like things there. Domesticated elans are called kanas, and we found out that like in Southwest Africa, farmers are actually using elans. I don't know if they're called. I don't know how to pronounce them, but they're actually using them instead of cows. And so that's one of the most recent domestication events. And there's two animals here, maybe rans and booballs. I don't know what they are anymore. You have to look it up in the spreadsheet. But they were domesticated in ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia, I think, and then became kind of more like mythical creatures. And their wild populations are very, very endangered. But yeah, let me just it's okay. We don't have time. But there are a lot of animals here that. And then definitely some of these smaller rodents would be more easy to domesticate. We were talking about that, Jade and I, about certain animals. But yeah, anyway, that's it for now.
Well, very nice. It was satisfying to me. Atlas Altera's terminology is a favorite little bit of mine. But we can move now to questions as well.
Mm-hmm.
We can start, if there are any questions from anyone in the audience, free to put them in the chat. And while you might do that, we can address. There was an interesting question that you guys have pointed out from the Reddit thread to do with the poultry taboo in North Africa, which I had seen as well, and I simply don't know anything about it. So if you wanted to address that real quick while
Sure.
anyone happens to send in questions.
So yeah, this was to do with like I think the Bagawata Confederation, like an early Islamic Berber or what we call Tamazic dynasty or confederation of different tribes, and they had a very distinct form of interpretation of the Muslim faith where they brought in a lot of pre-Islamic beliefs. One of them being a taboo of eating chickens and their eggs. And that was one of the only, because like we were thinking, what foods have commonly been seen as unclean or taboo or prohibited in human history? It's like pigs and beef because of their value, pigs because they might be considered dirty. But fowl, like birds, I've never really thought about that until I came across this, and I was like, "This is too cool of a thing in history to let it stay hidden in the margins." So we brought it out as like a interesting foodway kind of irony. And so in this part of the world, they do actually eat a lot of chickens in our world, but what we have here is the bigger emphasis is rabbits, and like rabbits are eaten in Morocco, but like it's more eaten here now in Altera. Plus, like guinea pigs from Spanish contact, or what we call cavies, will go and become popular there. They're very easy to raise in like arid mountain climates.
Intriguing. And just my own question, really quick, back to the poultry taboo map. So the kind of 10 to 20%, the kind of light pinkish regions for example, in North America and in Western Europe, does that represent kind of the spread of modern vegetarianism in the West?
Yeah. So like the logic here is that like there's no like basically this is what really kind of was really difficult for us because we're not doing this on real data and we're not using data porting to make this where like drawing the map each time. I had to remember what the base value was for these two things to make these three things or these four things, right? So if they're vegetarian there, that means they also don't eat chicken there. So my percentages have to kind of they have to what do you call it? They have to be ported over or they have to be reflected too. So yeah, this just represents it either represents the vegetarian or the pescatarian percentage.
Right. Yeah, it's just interested in that there. I figured that's what it was, but it's interesting to know. And the question on Reddit was from Rulat Sangar. I'd meant to mention that as well.
Nice.
It doesn't seem that we have any questions immediately in the chat, so we can, if you like. We do only have... No, now we do. From Matthew. Are the stripes over the Society of Nation territories meant to convey no data?
Matteo, do you want to? I think that's true, right?
Yeah. No data or too many data.
Yes.
Given how the definition works in Altera.
Yeah, not or inconsistent analytical units, right? Like there's no territorial unit there for them to collect the data on. By the way,
other people are writing, so they might.
Yeah, and I should wait really quickly. I should just say these maps intrinsically are flawed. Okay, like doing data by country, like representing data by country, is a flawed way of doing it. It's not consistent because you're not using the same population size. You're not using the same kind of territorial kind of like roughly the same size of territory. So like you might be representing all of China as one thing. But then like Liechtenstein will get its like perfect like spotlight, right? So that's the main thing to consider there. But in Altera, our data allows for at least like 10 times more data points, or not data points, sorry, 10 times more. What do you call it? Cases
to specificity.
Yeah, to represent. So that's more fun.
Indeed. We had lamented the modern country as a unit for measuring statistics in the last one too. It's very true. And as another question, Babatunde asks, is Morsalian or Morselian the alternate word for pescatarian?
Yes, that is. So I think you joined a little later, but in the very early on in the video or in the session, I said that this is pescatarian plus these guys, insects or humans, and So I feel like most pescatarians would eat snails, for example. But most pescatarians in the West might be afraid of these other two things. But I think in Europe especially, they're really trying to, for the climate reasons, for environmental reasons, they're trying to experiment a lot with insect meat patties and all that kind of stuff. And so this thing here is represented by this thing here, critters, beasts versus critters. And the OG kind of pescatarian lens is probably this, that they'll eat these kind of critters, but they won't eat these kind of critters. That's what the Mesalian lens is probably. And that's like the very Western biased mindset of like, ugh, yuck versus moral. Anyway, yeah. Nice question.
Yeah, and Matthew asks next, what do things like raccoons and possums fall under?
Okay, so
if they, yeah.
So okay, I just wanted to check if Frank is there or ready to talk about his stuff, because I think we might want to talk about his world calendar stuff before the countdown. So someone.
Frank is here.
Yeah, but is he actually here? Or is that just his eye? So Frank, do a little wave, okay? But other than that, I'm gonna answer that. I'm gonna answer now. So possums are represented in here. They fall under Sargi, I believe. Let's see, are they Sargi? Yeah, possums and the cuscu, which is commonly eaten in Papua. These animals are represented by the term Sargi, but raccoons, I think, are not as commonly eaten in Altera. Like, they might be eaten as like game, like you might go hunting for them once in a while, but they're not like a ready staple meat you might see. Like, they might be more of like a novelty of food item. But everything here on this map, I'm trying to show to people that none of these would surprise a Westerner when they see it on the menu. They might just not eat them, right? Like, there are Westerners who go to restaurants who just like never eat calamari, but they know what calamari is. I'm saying these are common foods that people understand, they go like, oh yeah, I understand other people eat this. There's no shock value there. They might be grossed out by it, but they're not like surprised that this is eaten. But raccoons might still be a surprise. They might go to a rural restaurant in West Virginia or something, and they go like, oh, what the heck? They have raccoons on the menu here. So that's the difference.
Yeah, that's
Bears,
kind of what
no.
I suppose also happened to certain primates as well, who are eating that. It's kind of a not a commonly understood thing. It's the idea. There are a couple more questions that we could ask, unless you prefer to get to the countdown, and maybe we can circle back to questions.
Okay, I'll do a quick answer here for the two questions. So bears are not. So most carnivores don't really make sense to domesticate for food, or to like just like rear today for food. I feel like even crocodiles, they're way more intensive. So the reason why crocodiles are raised in captivity is mostly because they also have a really good value for leather. But I think bear meat is, like, historically, people eating bears in the Pacific Northwest or in Hokkaido, there's more of a ceremonial reason, or it's like a coming of age thing. They might be hunted along with other things, like they come across a bear opportunistically. They might hunt it, but it's not something that they want to like consistently have in their pantry. Is my understanding. If someone wants to prove me wrong on that, sure, but yeah, I don't know if it's necessary to represent that here. And then Central and West Africa, it's just easier to raise, like in those areas, or maybe not easier to raise. Like the rodents might be same as chickens, like very easy to raise, but it's just, I just found out that cane rats and certain kinds of rodents were very like, they're not prized, but they were commonly eaten. And I was thinking, well, maybe the Western lens has kind of impacted like their consumption these days, but in Altera maybe not. So it was just kind of more to spice it up a little. Anyway, okay, that's it. So let's invite Frank on. Can someone, Mateo? Can you invite Frank on? I don't know how to do it. Nice.
Okay, thank Chase.
I can invite myself on.
There you go.
just noticed.
Hello, Frank.
Hello. Well, yeah.
Excuse me. Oh.
We have a very simple
Obviously,
calendar
it's the
web
last-
page.
Yeah. It's the last day of 6,738 today.
It is. And wait, if we change it to the 23rd, it's a new year, right?
Yeah.
The first day of the new year. And so we are pretending in 2 minutes that the clock somewhere around the world it's going to be midnight, right?
So yeah, I was trying to figure out where exactly it would be in.
What time is it in?
2
Time in
minutes.
Qatar right now, I think is no. So it might be like India? Oh, before India.
Probably, but India doesn't have 24-hour time.
Yeah.
It's complicated. Somewhere in Pakistan,
Yeah.
probably.
Maybe in Iran. But anyway, so yeah, this is someone said there's 14 months, but yes, there how many months are there?
It is 13 months. It's 13 months with each month has 28 days. Because it's so beautiful to have exactly 4 weeks in a month, and 28 times 13 will be 355, so you need an extra day
Right.
to have a solar calendar. And for simplicity on the site, it's it's counted as a 14th month, but the 14th month is just 1 day. Except every 4th year when it's 2 days. Except every 100th year when it's not. Except every 400th year when it is still it's the Gregorian rule.
Okay.
Used.
I'm going to start the countdown. So I think you this is why we let religion deal with the calendars. I let the monks deal with the calendars. But here's the countdown. And we'll talk about it after because I just noticed that we are literally on the clock here. Yay! Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Did you choose this video specifically, or?
Yeah, I chose it.
It's midnight in Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Oman, the UAE,
there you go.
Seychelles, Mauritius.
Isn't the music so pompous? It's like so British. Okay, so we had that countdown, and then now, guys, let's see what is going on around the world in Altera. So this is how people around the world rang in the new year. And while we're doing this, Frank, you can continue explaining what is the world calendar based on?
Okay, that's.
Can you?
I mean, that was your idea, to be clear. The world calendar is based on a positivist calendar by Auguste Comte. And I don't know what, I just opened Wikipedia. I think the idea behind it is that the Society of Nations wanted to have a culturally independent calendar, and they chose one that is explicitly not the Gregorian calendar, and that is more logically constructed, slightly more at least. And I guess that's the reason why they chose that one. And our idea for an epoch was then to use the Julian day, which is also the idea to have a starting day for the calendar that is more or less culturally independent, not at least not dependent on some specific religion. It's still tied to, I think it's tied to 3 cycles: a solar cycle, lunar cycle, and some kind of old Roman taxation cycle. So it's still essentially Western based, but it has a nice property to be early enough that almost all of written history is
considered part of it.
In the years after the start of the calendar, so it makes dating simpler.
Yes, but because the reason, written history is privileged over prehistoric. which is fine because when else would you talk about kind of like history only matters for when it starts getting written down, right? Just kidding.
Well, at least exact dates probably.
That's true. There's a correlation there.
Only matter.
I believe you have some reason there.
So yeah, that's one of the calendars of Altera.
Yes, but
And
no one
actually-
uses it, right? No one uses it but bureaucracy, like global bureau.
Hopefully not.
Yeah. Hey,
Babatunde will be patiently waiting for the calendar map.
I was just here.
But
This is Frank's
if you want
backyard.
to use it, that site is up.
Yeah.
It's a very nice website.
We're working on it. It's complicated to invent new calendars. I mean, we just invented one for Hawaii
For the postcard.
exactly for what's that name? The Homoanan calendar. The one with the epoch of the shining anus.
Yeah, there's some background history there that we promise is not just for shits and gigs.
Not at all. Why would I? Yeah, but some other calendars, especially the emporic ones, that are still planned and are not completely mapped out. And even then, because I do have the basic idea how the Islamic calendar would work and the emporic calendar, but the calculations, implementing the calculations is another beast.
Yeah.
But I have the books behind me.
For now, we have the time zone map, right? That helps. It's like a macro way of organizing the calendars. We have multiple calendars that can exist within these time zone systems, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's beautiful in itself.
Yeah.
That's impressive formula to convert between one calendar and the other.
I can't do this anymore. Frank explained it to me at one point. I understood it at one point. I was able to do it at one point, and now I can't do it anymore.
It is self-explanatory.
Yeah.
But this was very fun to do. Wow. This is so. I wish we could just have like a digital version of this, just like constantly.
Ooh.
And then you have the graphic of the seconds counting down together, like they're just like constantly updating. Maybe we can get.
Possible, yeah.
Yeah, we don't need to get you to do it because you obviously have other stuff to prioritize. But I feel like someone who likes coding challenges, we can like set this up as a coding challenge for someone to do. But anyway,
That's not too hard.
no, but
the formulas, yeah.
I want the database first, Frank.
Yeah. And visible speech, I know.
Yes. Oh, yes. Well, have we shown people so for the people who have their passports, you should be using this. I think some people people understand, but this what? Never mind. Okay, hold on.
What? Where are you typing?
Oh, no, international. So there you go. Look, it's not broken. Anyway, so you get your IPA pronunciation of what you think your name should be based on what culture you're based in Altera. I think it's based on the 5 Society Nation Lex, right? You represent yourself with one of those 5 Society Nation Lex, and then you can get this. The 5 Society Nation Lex is different. That's your de facto name, and this is your like international bureaucratic name or whatever, the representation of your name. So some people have already done it, and it's a very impressive table. I think this is one of the most comprehensive versions of visible speech, right? Am I right, Frank? Like, I don't think people have come up with this many without diacritics, right? Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Originally, visible speech didn't have that many symbols.
Yeah.
I had to add some. And... Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Wait, hold on. I gotta capture. Okay, never mind. I can't capture it. I don't know how to capture it on the screen.
Don't worry.
Yeah. But sorry. What I was saying is Frank's spent a lot of time here doing this. We actually talked to a linguist or someone who does like who do we talk to? Someone really famous, no?
Yeah, Mark Schwilden, who doesn't talk to us anymore.
Yeah.
We spooked him. Yeah. As one who already spent some time investigating visible speech, and I think you also wanted to make a Unicode proposal, but didn't get around to it yet. I don't know why. Yeah.
We should do that.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah. Anyway, I think we can. Frank, is there anything else we should talk about for the calendar, or for the clock? Why it's New Year and all that? We covered it all.
Well, not necessarily. But if you have questions,
Does anyone have questions?
I can try to answer.
All right. I will say the new year means that whatever we send to people, like the postage stamps, postage stamps will be up to. So you'll notice.
They do have the date on it.
Yeah, you'll notice that the glyphs for the postage stamps will have a different. This thing, and the postage stamp will be different because we're no longer in 6738 anymore. We're in 6739, right? So little cool things like that, little flourishes like that will be updated. We can play GeoGuessr if people want to play GeoGuessr, but I noticed that most of the usual GeoGuessr crowd is not here. But if people want, I'm willing to play as we hop off as an after party, but no obligations. Is anyone interested? Oh, yes. Dog is here.
There is indeed interest.
Okay. Hey. All right. Okay. I'm gonna create it. We're gonna hop off. Thanks everyone for joining. Chase for moderating or being the host. Frank for showing up and showing us your eye and your beautiful voice. And yeah, Mateo and I will keep on doing what we're doing. Next month is the booze map, which is gonna blow your socks off. It's like way too nerdy. Way too much information. Yeah.
Much more detailed than this one.
Yeah. There's way too much annotated content on the map. Think of like the T map or the Steeps map, but like with way more categories and way more drinks. So that's gonna be fun. And then in December we will. That is for December. Sorry. And we're this December I think I'm gonna send out postcards to some Patreon fans. So if you want to support the project, you know how to do it. Go on Patreon. Help us out, get on the stickers club, and you will be highly appreciated. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.